This is the ultimate settings tutorial for the Sheeran Looper X. We're gonna talk about loop settings and global settings, and in the end, I'm also gonna demonstrate all the looping modes and how they work. If you're only interested in one specific topic, you can jump right to it in the description. Let's go. So we're starting off with loop settings. If you go into loop settings, your first section is gonna be tempo and click track. So here you can adjust the tempo, again using the wheel on the left. And if you type on .00, you can fine-tune your tempo if you want it to be even more specific. In the next row, you can change your time signature. Again, you have to select the field via touching it, and then you can change the time signature. So on the left part, you have like the fours, and once you scroll the wheel further to the right, you can go to eighths and go 7/8 or like anything else you want to do. In the next row, we have our click track. So again, you select the field via touching it, and as you can see, there are different options here. I'm now going to tell you what every option is for. Click track on recording means that the click track is active every time you're recording. If you're recording or overdubbing. So I'm recording now, click track is active. I'm overdubbing now, click track is still active. Now I stop the overdubbing mode and only play back, and the click track is gonna be muted. So that's what this function does. So next up is record first layer. If that's selected, the click track is only gonna be active while your first recording layer. And once you go into overdubbing mode, it's going to be muted. Then you can also have record and play. So then basically your click track is going to be active the whole way through. In the last row, you can activate your count in. So for example, for 1 bar or 2 bars or 3, whatever you want. And when you press record, it's going to count in 1 bar in the tempo you've selected. And then it starts recording right afterwards. Next up, we have the looping modes, which I'm going to demonstrate later. So next up is track length and quantize. So if you activate quantize, the looper actually will take what you record and is trying to adjust it to the note value that you've selected here. So he's kind of helping you to move what you record into time. The problem here is if you record one layer in eighths and then you're looping another one on top, which is for example in fours, you would have to go into loop settings and change the quantize setting in between. So that's like very tricky if you're live looping. So I leave that off usually and just trust myself. So on the top you can set your track length. From default, the looper is automatically gonna see what you record and then detect how many bars that is. But you can also set that manually to like 2 bars, 3 bars, whatever you want. Since I am in multi-mode currently, this is only going to be available one time for the whole looper. So every single track is going to be the same length. Once I change my looping mode, for example to sync mode, I can choose the length of each track individually. For example, I can say track 1 is going to be 2 bars, track 2 is going to be 4 bars, and so on. I don't use that usually because the looper is going to detect how long something is anyways, but if you want to use it, it's there. So next up is one shot and decay. If you activate that for track 4, for example, it means that what you recorded on track 4 is only going to play one time. So for example, if you want to record like an outro on track 4, once you go to your muting modes and then you activate track 4 playing, it's going to play one time and afterwards it's automatically going to deactivate again. The feedback down here means how loud that's going to be. So you have to set the level of track 4 before you record it, because otherwise it's going to be 100%. So a little demonstration here. We have our loop playing normally, and then we have one shot and decay activated on track 4. So if you unmute that, It's going to play once and then automatically stop again. So that's what that does. So you can use one shot and decay, for example, for an outro, or if you have like a little pre-chorus that's only going to play once, something like that. So next up is time stretch. So you can sync the audio to the tempo here. This one can be helpful. So for example, if you have your tempo set, you're playing and recording in that tempo, but you're not like 100% accurate, the looper is going to help you a bit. So that's why that is helpful. So time stretch means if you played something too fast, that the looper is allowed to stretch it out to fit the tempo. So, and the last section is customize pedal menu. So basically you can set for your mode pedal what that's gonna do. From default that's set to mute, so if you press the mode pedal, you can mute and unmute all the tracks. Then you can also set that to tuner, activating the tuner via your mode pedal. You can also set it to effects. It's basically like the mute function, just that you activate and deactivate effects on the single tracks here. And the last option is custom. So if you set it to custom, the mode pedal is going to trigger the menu that you can set right here. So for example, I do have speed on this track now, fade on this one. And if you have set it to custom and you save that, your mode pedal is set to custom, you go back out, then your mode pedal is going to trigger exactly that palette that you set right here. And right now those things are global for the whole looper, and you can also choose reset on new loop. So every time you have a new loop, you can choose those settings accordingly. Then we're coming to global settings. If we go into global settings, we have general, the first section. And here you can choose your pedal logic. So that's the logic of this pedal, what it does. You can set it to record dub play. That's helpful, for example, if you know exactly what your next loop is going to be and you can jump directly into your next loop. This is going to be helpful. If you take your time and you have to think about your next loop, then you set it to record play dub. So the next one is pretty self-explanatory as well. If you hold down your record and play pedal, it's going to undo your last recording. You can also set that to peel, which means if you hold it down, it's going to delete your last loop shell. I don't really know where the difference is. If you know that, leave it down in the comments. So the next one is hold track pedal. So you can basically set what holding down the track pedal is going to do. From default, it's set to overdub arm. So if you hold it down, it's going to arm the track for overdubbing. You can also set it to clear track. So if you hold down your track pedal, it's going to delete the whole track. So in the next row, you can tell the looper what he's supposed to do after you bounce the track. For example, if you bounced everything that's on track 2 to track 1, should the looper then delete everything that was on track 2, or should he keep it on track 2? So you basically have everything double then. So next up, you can activate bars and layers count. So what that does is in track view and in wave view, the looper is going to show you how many bars your current loop has and how many layers there are on each track. Show mixer, click and backing track activates another channel on your mixer for your click track and your backing track, so you can set the levels as you want. So next up is the audio section. The first one is phantom power. You want to activate that when you have a condenser microphone coming into your looper. If not, you can leave that off. So the next one is XLR ground lift. You can hear like a little switch when that activates. So what that means, if you have multiple pieces of equipment standing on the same ground or floor, then it can be that outside of your cables there is going to be currents running from one device to the other one. And that can lead, for example, to hum and noise in your amplifier. So when you activate the XLR ground lift, it's going to cut the ground pin connector of your amplifier. So basically, it's going to cut the connection from your amplifier to the ground. So all these currents that are in the ground are not being transferred to the sound coming out of your amplifier. So next up, you can set your output level. You can choose between line and amp. If you go into an amplifier from your looper, you choose amp. Every other time you basically choose line. So if you're going into a mixing desk or like your audio interface, you want to have that set to line. So next up, you can select your tuner output. If you have that set to all, everybody can hear when you're tuning. If you set it to phones, you can hear it only in your headphones. So next up, you have USB audio. You want to use that if you want to connect your looper via USB to your computer. You can enable the connection here. So you have two connection modes, DAW and live. So for any live application, you use live. And if you connect it via USB to a DAW like Cubase or Logic, you choose DAW. And input level is basically your volume or gain. So the last section are our MIDI settings. So if you want to use the MIDI inputs or outputs at the back, this is the section controlling that. I can't tell you much about that section because personally I'm not using it. So if you need it, you can experiment with it right here. And under info, you can find the license and your current firmware version. So if you want to know more about this looper, check out my main tutorial right here. And now let's check out the looping modes. So now I'm going to demonstrate all the looping modes and their differences. We're going to start off with multi. So this one is your normal looping mode, where every track has like the same length and the same tempo. So for example, you loop something. And it plays back. And second track is exactly the same length. And then you can put something on top on the third track, same length again. And so on. So that's basically multi-mode. So switching to sync mode, we're going to go into menu, loop settings, looping mode, sync mode. And now we're in sync mode. So in sync mode, you can make track 1, for example, 2 bars long, track 2 double as long, so 4 bars, track 3 you can make 8 bars long, whatever you want. So the other tracks are going to be multiples of the first one, basically. So I'm going to demonstrate that. We have 2 bars here. And the second one is now longer. So that's basically how that works. So now we're in song mode. You can switch the mode as I showed earlier. And what song mode basically does, you can loop one part of a song on track 1, the next part on track 2, next part on track 3, but you can only play one track at a time. So there's only going to be one track playing at all times, but they'll all have the same tempo. So I'm going to demonstrate that. For example, that's our chorus. Playing on track 1 is our chorus. Then we're going to arm track 2. And once you press the play button, it's going to stop track 1. And then you have the verse playing on track 2, for example. Then you can arm track 1. And switch. But once you press play or record on one of the tracks, all the other ones are gonna stop. So now we're in band mode, And band mode basically has a constant rhythm track, and the other 3 tracks are going to work exactly as in song mode. So I'm going to demonstrate that as well. So we have our rhythm track, and once we press record on track 2, the rhythm track is going to keep playing all the way through. So basically, once you go to track 3, track 2 is going to stop. And those 3 work exactly as in song mode. So the last one is free mode, so you can basically do whatever you want with any of the tracks, and the tempo is unsynced too. So I'm going to demonstrate that as well. So basically every track is going to play back exactly what you played into it without any synchronization between the tracks. So guys, that's it with this tutorial. If you got something out of it, leave a like and subscribe down below. And if you're interested in some loop tutorials, like how I loop some famous songs with this loop station, so what's on which channel and which effects I use, then be sure to let me know in the comments. So thank you for watching and have a great rest of your day.